Hey y'all, welcome to part 3 of the engine rebuild, and in this video we're going to be focusing a lot on painting parts that are removed from around the engine, as well as cleaning a lot of the parts as well. Before we get into the video though, I want to show you something that I forgot to show you in the last video. So this is your water pipe. This comes off of your thermostat housing here, and then this feeds into your block, and that feeds into your temperature sensor, and so on. This is why my coolant was so brown. It was just sending all of this rust throughout the entire system. So I went ahead and picked up a water pipe from an Avenir, which has the DET. I think it was the W11, could have been the W10, I can't remember, but it was brand new, so hopefully that solves my issue. It's a slightly different design. Some of these are in different places. Some of them, this is longer, it like goes all the way down to here. This one's longer, it like reaches out to here. But hopefully the replacement works just fine and I can make it work on my car. So the reason I got a new water pipe from an Avenir instead of a Pulsar is, unsurprisingly, this is specific to the 54C. I can't find a brand new 54C water pipe anywhere. I thought I found one for like $500, and turns out they're like, oh, actually it's discontinued and we don't have it. No surprises. So the Avenir one should work to replace this. So I would highly recommend that if you have brown coolant in your DT to check out the water pipe, see if it is brown. If it is, then that's probably your issue. So here I am at work. I have a whole bunch of different mounts and housings here that I'm going to be glass bead blasting, and then we'll paint them so it gives the block a nice refinished look. But before we go straight to glass bead, we need to put these through the parts cleaner to get off all the oil and grease. Here I am in the process of allodyning all these parts, so you can see the difference between the parts that were freshly glass bead blasted and the parts that were freshly allodined. I am prepping the valve cover to get painted. Disregard how crappy it looks right now. I just put it through our parts cleaner and it kind of stripped off the paint, but that's fine because we're painting it. And it looks pretty clean on the inside as well. So let's go ahead and blast the rest of this paint off. Now that we have our valve cover blasted, what I'm going to do is allodyne it. Here is the finished valve cover, which is allodined and prepped for paint. Valve cover is all prepped. One thing is you want to wipe off the surface with some isopropyl alcohol, and I completely taped off the entire bottom side. Another thing is to fill the threaded holes. When painting, make sure you wear the proper protective equipment, so a respirator or a supplied air hood, as well as gloves. Gloves aren't really necessary, but I prefer them just so paint doesn't get all over my hand. So let's get into it. Alright, so here we have all of our finished parts. You got several ones over there that are still curing, and all the black ones over here. Overall, I'm pretty damn happy with how this turned out. Look at that finish. Alright, so we got a lot accomplished today. I've been here at work on a Saturday spraying for the last like 8 hours. Gonna be coming in back in tomorrow to take all of the parts and going to let them cure overnight. That way I can put them back in the milk crate that I brought them in so I can take them back home. And probably do the intake next because it'll look weird having all of those parts done, but having the intake be not done. So that's my plan, is to grab disassembly intake, do the runners, the throttle bodies, the collector, and paint that silver. All of the parts here are done, so let's go ahead and pack these up, take them home, and then get the intake ready for painting. Intake is all prepped, so we're gonna go ahead and paint it. The intake is finished, so I'm going to go ahead and put this underneath the heat lamp. That way it can cure and I can take it home tonight. So while I'm waiting for this to cure, I'll go ahead and give you guys some tips for paint prep. There's a lot of information out there already, so I'm not going to go too much in depth. Tip 1, make sure you wipe down your part. I know I said it before, but use some isopropyl alcohol and a lint-free towel and wipe it down. That way when you go to spray it, it looks all nice and clean. Also, after you're done wiping down your part, I would recommend hitting it with some compressed air as well. Even though you use a lint-free towel, there can still be a little bit of residue, so I would use some compressed air to help clean off the rest of anything that's on the part. Tip number 2, mask off parts where you have coolant flow, or you have vacuum lines, or you have threaded areas. That way paint doesn't get on it. You don't get paint in either your cooling system or in the threaded holes. That way it would make it harder to get bolts in. Number 3 seems pretty obvious, but it's very, very important. Make sure you spray at different angles. So you don't just sit here like this and you continue spraying. You have a lot of crevices that need filled. So make sure you move around your part as you're spraying. All right, intake's finished. One thing that I didn't do that I kind of wanted to was take off the collector and the runners and separate everything from the throttle bodies. But I didn't want to replace these gaskets just yet. I was going to, once we put it together, I was going to run a smoke machine through it to leak test it. And if it was leaking, then I would replace it. But as long as it holds a seal, I'm not going to replace the gaskets. Also, because the gaskets are discontinued and they're very expensive. I mean, for both of the throttle body gaskets from the UK, after shipping is like $60 for the set, and then the collector gasket all the way around here, I'm only able to find it one place on eBay, literally the only place I can find it, and it's like $90 for the gasket. So I'd rather not spend that much just for some seals if I don't have to. After seeing this in silver, kind of upset that I didn't paint the fuel rail black. But yeah, I painted it silver. Might do that when I go to bigger injectors with a bigger turbo. Might paint that one black. We'll see how it looks with both silver ones in the car. While I'm waiting for parts to come in and my block and head to come back from the machine shop, I decided to start cleaning everything. So transfer and transmission are cleaned. They're not perfect. You can still obviously some oxidation, but it's a lot cleaner than it was. And I also cleaned the engine bay. It's once again not perfect, but looks a lot better. Also went ahead and cleaned pretty much everything around the head. So my cams, your cam sprocket bolts, baffle, oil tubes. The rockers look fantastic. I'll put a picture on screen to show you the before and after. The cam brackets turned out really, really good as well. So everything on the head should have a nice refresh and be nice and clean. One thing I did notice as well on the cams when I was cleaning them, it says 53J on it. So I looked at the part number from the parts catalog, and the cams are supposed to be 54C specific. I'm not sure if that's just a machining thing where this is a 54C cam, or if they actually are interchangeable, and for some reason the Pulsars have a unique part number, but I just found that interesting. All right, that's gonna do it for this video. The one thing that I didn't do was clean and paint the pipe from the compressor to the intercooler. I'll do that off camera, but if you like what you saw and want to see more, like, comment, subscribe. Thanks.